Hey yo guys, what's up? And welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our final review of Blackbraid 2 by Blackbraid. So here we are, Blackbraid 2, the follow-up to Blackbraid 1, which came out last year. My number 4 album of the year last year on my top 5 was Blackbraid 1. And I gotta say, this follow-up, if you watch the first impressions, you'll know how I felt at the beginning of the week, that this is everything Blackbraid 1 had, but more, right? And essentially that's what it is. It's nearly twice the length, and nearly twice as many songs. It's 6 songs versus 10 songs, about 35-ish minutes versus an hour, basically double what you had in the first album. Is that a good thing? In some ways, yes, in some ways, no. So, just gonna get this out of the gate. My biggest problem with this album is I feel like it's got a lot of padding, and that's a very unfortunate thing, because yes, it's a lot more of the stuff that I like, but a lot of these songs and sections of songs feel long just for the sake of being long, and sometimes it's hard to really come down on it because it does create atmosphere, it does create a specific type of mood that the artist is going for, but as a listener, sometimes it just doesn't hit the right spots. So I'll use the best example, which is the longest song on the album, Moss Covered Bones on the Altar of the Moon, which is a great song title, by the way. A lot of these song titles are really great, very poetic. 13 and a half minutes long. I think it's a great song. I think it's an enjoyable song, but it just doesn't have anything defining in it. It doesn't have anything that really stands out. It kind of just rides a really safe wave through the entire 13 and a half minutes, and that to me is problematic. It feels like it's long for no reason. For me to enjoy a long song, there's got to be something in it to look forward to, a specific riff, a specific scream, a specific something that I can go, okay, I know this is coming up, that juicy part that's going to tickle my eardrums, and I really did not find that with a lot of these songs, especially some of the longer ones. I mean, there are some things here and there, like some nice cymbal work here and there, some cool drum grooves. I mean, there's good riffs here and there on the album, but I feel like this 13 and a half minute long song could have easily been a 5-minute song, and it would have been a lot more digestible and a lot less like wanting more, right? If you got a song that's that long, I feel like you're sitting there going, give me something to wow about, and it just didn't do that for me. And there's a few songs on this album that unfortunately strike me that way.
And when you have like long songs like that, you want them to have enough of a kind of musical story to tell that you can follow.
Yeah.
Like a lot of this album is just kind of like, here's some stuff, and then maybe switch into something else partway through.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have the contour of musical storytelling as much as it is just kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But it's hard, like I said, it's hard to gripe on it because there are people out there that I guess like that stuff. They like that. It's setting this atmosphere, it's setting this tone and this mood, and it's just kind of riding that safe wave.
But I feel like perhaps it could have been done a bit better, though.
It could have been done better. There could have been more stuff in it.
More stuff. I mean, there's albums we've learned listened to that do that though, that have their own kind of tone, and in some cases just kind of let you feel the vibe.
Yeah.
But it still has like action in it, and by action I mean stuff going on that actually takes you throughout the journey, as opposed to it kind of just being one thing. And just what's coming to mind is Where Owls Know My Name by Rivers of Nile, because there are a lot of longer songs.
Yeah.
And that just vibe,
yeah.
But there's a lot of different stuff going on, and it actually feels like you're really going on this journey as opposed to just kind of like going in one straight direction,
yeah,
from point A to point B, and that's just kind of it.
I think a couple other bands that maybe do it well are The Ocean. They do it well, yeah. Long songs with lots of cool stuff. Navel of Scars, they do it really well too. But yeah, so that's my biggest gripe with this album, is that it just feels like it has too many padding. Now the stuff I did like, I guess there's a couple songs that really stood out to me the most. One is track number 3, The Wolf That Guides the Hunter's Hand. This song reminds me of stuff that's on the first album. I don't know if it's a riff or a melody or something that they borrowed or used, but there's something on there that kind of I kept thinking was pulled from the first album. The song switches up. It kind of is black metal, and then it kind of gets really doomy, which I like that aspect of it. Really rad second half. The riffs are nice. And it's one of these songs that's just really relaxing yet heavy at the same time, and I really like that aspect. I think I mentioned that last week as well. It's just such a cool vibe that this artist puts out, to have that dichotomy of styles meshed together so well. I like the fact that it fades out with the lead solo and you got the riffs riding behind it. That's really cool. And one thing about this song that I thought was kind of funny, do you know the song America, Fuck Yeah, by Trey Parker? For some reason, I was singing that along with this because it just matched the melody. It does, trust me. So I thought that was funny. It gave me a bit of humor through the week. The other song that I gravitated towards was a song that went into my playlist, and that's Twilight Hymn of Ancient Blood, track number 8. This is the one that's got some thrashy elements to it. The solo on top of the main riff at the end is the best part for me. The riff on this song is really good. It just goes hard. It's just the most enjoyable song for me. Mm-hmm. Overall, I think it's the best composed one, but the problem with this song, if I'm going to say a problem, is that it's one song and then it switches to another song. It's got that weird split.
Halfway through, it just becomes something completely different.
It becomes something completely different. And a lot of the times I would gripe about that, but for some reason, for whatever reason, it didn't bother me on this track. And I think it's because I knew the payoff was going to be justified. I think the second half for me was so strong that the first half was still good. I was like, okay, I know what's coming. I kind
of wish there was a bit of a better transition between the two halves.
The transition would have been nicer.
Like, one half just kind of stops, and the next half just starts. If there was some kind of transition to flow between them, I think that would be way cooler.
Yeah, it would have been cooler, but it also does have an effect to have it just kind of stop and then kick your ass right in the floor.
I guess, yeah.
There's an effect there. There's a certain thing that they're doing. So,
the thrash metal jump scare.
Yeah,
just out of nowhere, just like, oh shit, what is that? Whoa!
Yeah, so that's kind of my 2 cents on it. The rest of the songs were good. I enjoyed the album as a whole, but those are the two that stood out to me the most.
Yeah, I kind of felt similar to how you did. I mean, I already kind of made some comments about the padding, as you mentioned. I felt like that was kind of like the main thing that was dragging me down through this album, is that there was a lot of stuff that didn't feel the most necessary. And a really, really good example is The Spirit Returns, which is the second track. At the 3:49, like 3 minutes 49 second mark, like the song ends. Like that's kind of the conclusion of the song. And then there's just this extra minute of stuff afterwards, and it makes me wonder, like, what is the point of this false ending? Like, it totally gives you that conclusive feeling of the song, just for it to just keep going, and you think, like, what is this? What is this doing here? It doesn't really serve the song very well. Like, why is it there? And that's kind of the issue. The wolf that guides the hunter's hand has a bit of a similar issue at the 5:30 mark, and the next 2 minutes aren't that necessary, but it's not as much of an issue. But that's just another case of that happening. Now, the two 10-plus minute long songs I actually didn't mind. I didn't mind their length. They were just overall pretty good songs to me. Like, those, as weird as it seems, did not suffer the padding issue that I kind of have with this record.
That's weird.
It's just really strange, but those ones I didn't really have that much of an issue with, but I understand that they don't have as much of an overarching contour that most 10-plus minute songs have. They just kind of start and just go. But Twilight Hymn of Ancient Blood, that was a really good track. I do agree with that. And that drum fill at the start of The Wolf That Guides the Hunter's Hand, super sick. Like, every time that would happen, I think, fuck, that's such a good fill. Like, that was awesome. But, you know, on top of, like, what I've already discussed with padding, there's also an intro and 2 interludes, all of which are like 2 minutes long. And we did mention this last week. It's kind of a problem because that's just adding more time of, like, okay, like, that's a long stretch between the songs. And it makes you think, like, why aren't these just integrated into the songs at that point? Because the first track is, The Spirit Returns builds off what comes from that, right?
Yeah.
The other 2 tracks doesn't really happen as much.
It doesn't, and that's a good example of what we're talking about when we say padding, is these interlude tracks are kind of there for no reason. They don't serve much of a purpose. I mean, if you're maybe like at a cabin and you're sitting there relaxing, listening to this music, and that would really kind of put you in that zone, but you're already at a cabin, you're already there, like, you don't need something to help you with that. I don't know, maybe as listeners we're not appreciating it as we're supposed to appreciate it, but yeah,
like, maybe this is a really good album to put on when you're on a hike.
Maybe. Maybe.
Like that might be where like the best experience for this album comes. I did listen to Blackbraid 1 throughout the week a little bit, and I found that it's just kind of like the same deal, but overall better. It's just, you mentioned it is pretty much half the size. It does have long interludes, but the average song length is shorter. And that's another kind of issue I had with this album, is that the average song length for this album is about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's way too long for what this album does.
Yeah.
A lot of these songs could be like 5-minute songs, and you'd have nowhere near as much of a problem. But the fact that it's just like 7 minutes of just kind of like stuff happening, and there's not too many moments that really feel, oh wow, that was super cool. So I feel like Blackbraid 1 is superior because it's the same deal, but the riffs are a little bit better, and it's just
more compact.
It's more compact. Like you're getting the same experience, but with less padding buffer. Like it less buffer. It's the same general deal. But I do think though fundamentally Blackbraid 2 is still strong because it's the same overall sound that Blackbraid 1 had.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a completely different album. It's the same general, experience. I just feel like it's not as tight of an experience as the first one.
I agree with that, and I think I'm ready to rate it. If you are,
yeah.
All right.
So ratings.
Yeah, it is a good album from beginning to end. It's enjoyable. There are a few things here and there that do stand out. Like there's a pinch harmonic that I liked in The Spirit Returns, and there's that wolf sound at the beginning of The Wolf That Guides the Hunter's Hand. There's like a wolf. There's the flute here and there. There's nature sounds. There's cool drum fills. There's
I wish there was more.
Good guitar solos, which is something that was an upgrade from the previous album I found. But yeah, this padding thing really, really irks me. And the long song, like, I just want to be clear. We're not against long songs. No. It's just, we don't like songs that are long for the sake of being long, and that's what this feels like. So for that reason, it's going to hurt the album score a little bit for me. I'm going to give it a 7. And yeah, that's why.
Fair enough.
So good album, but yeah, it's not in toe tag territory for me.
Well, as for myself, like I said, this album has a good foundation because it builds upon what the first album did, and the first album was really good. I just feel like there was a lot of padding, as we have told you for the past entire video.
Take a shot for every time we said padding.
Yeah, well, you might not survive. So there's that, but I also feel like there weren't really that many standout moments for me. Like I found like there were a few here and there, but overall, the album felt more like strong background music to me. It didn't feel like there was much that really stood out. I was like, yeah, that was the thing, outside of like a little bit here and there. So it really kind of dragged the album down. And the fact that I listened to Blackbraid 1 and thought this is just a better version of 2. So I'm going to get a little bit low with this. I'm going to give it a 5.5. Because it's got the strong foundation, but it kind of just is not as good as the first one.
Yeah.
And some reviews will compare albums, like, oh, this band is just not as good as the last one, and whatever. In this case, I think the comparison is worth making because it's the same overall sound. It's literally number 1 and number 2, like
exactly, yeah.
They're part of a series, so it's worth comparing them between each other, and I feel like Blackbraid 1 is better.
I agree. So, as usual, we want to know what you guys think of this album, and you can also put your thoughts about Blackbraid 1 in the comments down below and let us know what you guys think of this band, this album, all the fun stuff. And that's it for our review. 7 from me and a 5 from TV Fish.
5.5.
5.5 from TV Fish. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
We'll see you guys in the next one.